an agenda with a couple items on our consent agenda and one item on our non-consent agenda. You may have noticed that one item was removed yesterday. We have some minutes from October 13th.
Here,
Yeah,
before we do the minutes, do we need to do a roll call for attendance?
we do. Yes, thank you.
Yes. Fredson,
Here.
Sterner,
Aye. Here.
Vento,
Here.
Wolf. Okay, so she hasn't joined yet. Zarin. Councilmember Zarin should be joining us shortly. Lindstrom.
Here.
And I did just see Wendy. Have you joined us?
She's there.
I'm here.
Great, thank you. We just did roll.
Perfect timing. Swooped in right in the nick of time, Wendy. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, I got to sign in, and then my computer decided to be really, really slow on getting me to where I needed to go to sign in. So I'm sorry for being late.
You're right on time.
That's okay. And I also just saw Councilmember Zarin just joined. You want to go ahead and give us a check-in that you're here?
I'm present.
Thank you. Okay, we have a full complement of the committee, and thank you very much. We can move on.
Excellent, excellent. So now that we got the roll call, that takes us to the minutes from October 13th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes or any changes to those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 13th.
And did I hear a second?
Second.
Super. Roll call, please.
Fredson,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aaron's an aye.
and Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on our consent agenda, we have two items, two comp plans, one from Loretto and one from St. Paul. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Fredson would move approval.
Wolf seconds.
Thank you. Roll call.
Fredson,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Aye.
and Lindstrom.
Oh, I'm sorry. I beat you to the punch there. Aye. I got a little feedback.
Thank you very much.
Good. Moving right along to our one and only item on our non-consent agenda. We're talking Metro Plant polymers. Big purchase, 5-year contract. Mr. Ward.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Joe Ward. I'm here today I'm in support services and process engineering specifically, and I'm here today to talk to you about a new contract for polymer at the Metro plant. Next slide, please. And so first off, I just wanted to go over what we use polymer for, and it starts with our wastewater treatment residuals that we call sludge. And that sludge consists of particles that settle naturally and excess microorganisms from the treatment process. And you can see from the picture there, the jar on the left would be our sludge. Next slide, please. And our polymer is made up of mineral oil, polyacrylamide, and water. And when mixed with the sludge, it does what's shown in the right jar on the picture. It causes all the solids in the sludge to clump together. And what we do then is we use that in our dewatering equipment to help with the separation of solids and water. Next slide, please. And at Metro, our polymer is fed it's fed with sludge into our centrifuges, where it increases our solids content from 5%, which is similar to what you saw in that jar there, to about 27%, which is more like a dirt, and then it's pumped into the incinerators for incineration. Next slide, please. And so some background on the contract itself. We started this almost a year ago. In November, we completed an invitation for bids. We received 2 responsive bids, and we do a 2-part solicitation when we do polymer bidding. The first part, excuse me, we just get the product information, and we open those bids on January 30th. And in that product information, it tells us which polymers we're going to test full scale. So then we order some test quantities of those polymers, and we've actually feed it in with the centrifuges for a full scale performance evaluation. Then after we've completed that full scale evaluation, we open the pricing, and we did that on September 18th of this year. Normally it's only about a 3 to 4 month gap between the product information and the full scale testing, but with COVID, we certainly had to delay a few times. So after review of our full scale performance evaluation, Polydyne met the evaluation process requirements at our lowest cost. And what we're requesting is a $2.8 million annual expenditure and a 5-year contract not to exceed $15.1 million. That includes inflation in there, about 3% per year. And the Office of Equal Opportunity did not set a NCUB goal for this project. Next slide, please. So our proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize its regional administrator to award and execute a contract to Polydyne Inc. of Riceboro, Georgia, to provide Clarifloc polymers CE817 and CE2179 at unit prices of 12 cents per pound and $1 per pound, respectively, delivered to the Metropolitan Wastewater Treatment Plant. This contract will be for a period of 5 years with the total procurement not to exceed $15.1 million. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So Member Vento.
Mr. Chair, Joseph, this is Sue Bento, and this question doesn't have to do with this particular vote that we're going to do tonight, but at some point, I'd be interested in knowing any of the factors that we should be aware of as it relates to the safe use of the polymer products, either during the process of using them or once we're finished with those products, the disposal of them. So if at some point we could get some information on that, I'd really appreciate it. Kind of want to think about the, what if sorts of aspects of the use of this product.
Okay, thank you, Council Member Vento. I'd be happy to follow up on that, do a little more research into it.
Councilmember Sterner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Joseph, I was kind of wondering, like, it's a 5-year contract, so it seems like kind of longer than, just by short period on council, seems like we have a lot of 1-year contracts, 3-year contract, but 5 looks pretty long. And then with COVID, trying to get bids, and we had 2 responsive bids, it seems like locking down for 5 years seems different. So I don't know if you can go, is the pricing so great because they're love to get the contract that's a great price, so we're doing 5 years, or are there only 2 players in it? I mean, can you maybe talk about past history and the future, where we're at with this bid and the 5-year contract?
Mr. Chair, council members, certainly I can expand on that. So the way the contract is technically written for a 2-year initial period, and then each year after that, we extend it for, well, if the conditions are right, we extend it for an additional year beyond that. And so we are looking at the pricing as the years go by to make sure that it's still current. And if we don't agree with what we're getting anymore, we see markets change, we can certainly go back out for bids at that point. The 2 players in the game, or 2 manufacturers, my experience with this so far has been that there are several manufacturers that do make polymers, but in the municipal market, my understanding is that our margins are pretty thin. So there's only a couple consistent ones, and which would be Solenis. There used to be three, BASF, Solenis, and Polydyne that were typically interested in our business. And last year, Solenis acquired the polymer business of BASF. So now we're down to two. And a lot of what I've seen from the competition is that, now this is a little bit of speculation, but Solenis is owned by an investment group. I forget what the actual term is for the type of investment group that owns them. Whereas Polydyne is owned by, and has been owned by, one person in France. And so since there's not a board of directors and the greater push for more profits, I'm not being negative. That's just my personal speculation. Is there's more people to answer to at Solenis than there is at Polydyne. So it seems that Polydyne can typically provide lower pricing. Is just my experience with what I've seen. So.
That jumped out to me too, the two bidders. And I know that, I think Polydyne is in South Carolina. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but is that right?
Oh, Mr. Chair, you're correct. They're actually in Riceboro, Georgia, which is, I think it's
Georgia. There you go.
Savannah, close to South Carolina. Yeah.
Right. But I was thinking, like, this is a national market, and with the thousands of wastewater treatment plants out there that use this type of product for the reasons you articulated, it surprised me that there was only two really big players in this, that they've kind of cornered the market there a little bit.
Yes,
but it is what it is, I guess.
Mr. Chair, one other thing I'd like to add is when we're doing this, even at all of our plants, I'm reaching out to more manufacturers. This year, I thought maybe Ecolab would be, I forget exactly what the name of their division is that does polymers. I thought they were possibly interested, but then at the last minute, they did not follow through or bid. So when the time comes again for the next plant, I will certainly reach out to them again.
Great. Other questions or comments? It's an important part of the process, so got to move forward. Is there a motion?
Wolf moves approval.
Second?
Oh, go ahead, Chris. All right.
I heard Fredson on that one. So we've got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Fredson?
Aye.
Sterner?
Aye.
Vento?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Zirin?
Aye.
Lindstrom?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ward. Appreciate the presentation. And that takes us to our final item, the general manager's report. Lisa and or Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chair and council members, last month, September, Larry Rogacki retired. And he was our incident commander for the pandemic. So Ned Smith is our new incident commander. And we haven't given you an update in a bit. And I'm sure you're hearing about the increased cases out in the communities and across the state. So that would be good timing to do a pandemic update today. And so Ned's going to provide that. And then he's also got some good news to share, I think, on bond refinancing. So take it away, Ned.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. First, I will have my incident commander hat on, so just an update. We are now in week 33 of our pandemic response. Due to the tireless work of our staff, we have maintained 100% regulatory compliance and continue the rehabilitation and improvement of our system through our construction work, all while protecting our environment and the health of our employees and the region. We've had 7 employees test positive for COVID-19 since March, And we're currently seeing a slight uptick in the people reporting symptoms and close contacts. When we do have symptoms or close contacts, particularly if they are on site, we bring in NAVO to do some deep cleaning of the area anywhere they were. And we also do some interviews to find out who was talked to the person or who was close to them so we can track those folks as well. We have weekly ESET operations meetings to talk through issues and opportunities, and we've built a strong process for communicating information and updates to our employees. All of our facilities have health screening stations and procedures to make sure our employees are well and are keeping each other safe. We have modified many of our workstations to increase physical distancing, as well as implementing changes to lunchrooms, break schedules, shift schedules, as well as implementing mask protocols. We have shifted our incident command update meetings to bi-weekly. They used to be twice a week, and now we're just every other week, unless something comes up where we need to do an additional meeting. And given the steady operations, the focus of the meetings is actually more on situational updates and leveraging Neuro Leadership Institute materials for managing and increasing connections through the pandemic. So we're less on the, what our staffing levels or our close contact levels, and really we're using those as an opportunity to help folks on how is the best way to connect with people in these difficult times and how to manage them. Staff working from home continue to effectively support our on-site workers and to meet our planning responsibilities for the region. All of our staff have shown amazing dedication and adaptability as we continue to adapt to business as unusual. So that's my update on the pandemic. And before I get into the bond refinancing, I'll see if there's any questions about our pandemic response.
Any questions?
All right, so now I take off. I wanted to go out and get my hard hat and take it off and now put on my eye shade, but I don't have a green eye shade. But now I am the finance director. Every year, our bond consultants, which is Baker Tilly, they used to be Springstead for those old schoolers. They look at our outstanding debt and they compare it against the current market to see if we have opportunities for refinancing by considering the terms, interest rates, as well as any refinancing costs. This year, rates have finally hit a low enough point where refinancing approximately $35 million in some old Build America bonds from 2010 is going to yield about $500,000 of interest savings per year. The average interest rate on the outstanding bond was 5.1%, and we are anticipating about a 2.7% refinance rate. We hope to complete that transaction before year end. Baker Tilly also identified other opportunities from our 2012 offering that we will be pursuing in the spring, but we didn't want to do it all at once because we thought offering that much refinance would sort of flood the market for a little bit. So we are going to delay some of those other refinance opportunities. Those are going to deliver similar savings, $400,000 to $500,000 a year, assuming the market continues the way it is now. So that is some great news. I will always joyfully accept $500,000 a year in savings, and we're looking forward to getting that implemented. But it's been odd because rates have been low for quite a while, and the question keeps coming up, is it, can we refinance? And this is now finally, it's at a low enough level, and it also has to do with what we're looking at from refinancing. We've had some pretty low rates for the last almost 10 years, but we've got a couple that are still out there that are a little higher. So now is a good time. So it's finally happening. And I'll take any questions on that.
That's great news. Any questions on that? I had a question about the bonding bill, or kind of a somewhat similar topic. Can you talk about how the passage of a bonding bill impacts us in a positive way?
What an excellent question, Mr. Chair.
Here's the softball.
As a matter, yeah, we're very excited about the bonding bill. It included a $5 million grant for I&I inflow and infiltration repairs by our community partners. So we will be working with them to get those repairs out there. Typically, it's around 50%. The city has to put up the other 50%. but we have seen massive improvements in our flows over the last 15 years through the I&I program. I think the latest estimate was we've reduced total flows by 9 billion gallons. We take in about 90 billion a year, so that's a pretty big chunk. And when those, so when we stop having leaky pipes in the system, that keeps our flows down, which means it improves the capacity of our system, or it pushes out when we have to increase capacity, because we do not build capacity to clean rainwater. We build capacity to clean domestic waste and commercial waste. So this is a great way that we can continue that strategy, and it just saves us a lot of money in our operations and also in our capital program.
That's great news.
I would add, Mr. Chair, so we have the way that we've always done it, but we are going to take, which is generally we do an upfront kind of a fixed amount that all cities get regardless of size of the work, and that's usually $50,000 to $100,000. Our smaller community partners really appreciate that. They don't feel overwhelmed or by some of the larger partners. And then we do it on the back end. Everyone submits what they do when we basically prorate it across all of the recipients. And what that allows us to do is to spend every single dollar. Usually a grant is someone comes to you and says, hey, I'd like to spend $100,000 and it's going to take me 2 years. And so we say, okay, we'll hold that $100,000 aside for you. And then they come back after 2 years and they say, well, I only spent $50,000. Well, now we're sitting on $50,000, and how are we going to distribute that fairly and simply? So we call it a back end distribution, and it's a great way to make sure that every single dollar gets spent. But we want to take some time though and make sure that that's working for our customers and make sure that that's going to be the best way for them as well as for us. So we are going to do a little bit of outreach, working with some of our community partners to talk to them about what works best for them as well. So we are going to take a pause and make sure we are doing that. I see from Kyle, bonding bill also provides PFA funding. That's right. Thank you. The other thing that the bonding bill does is it funds our PFA, which are Public Facility Authority. So those are a special set of loans that we get that are subsidized from the state. There's also some federal money in there that's called SRF, State Revolving Funds. But even SRF, State Revolving Funds, require matches from the states as well. But that's a subsidized loan for us. And for specific projects where we apply with the PFA, usually it's around improving our plants and our interceptors, which is most of the work we do. But we do have to go through a checklist because every year the PFA has some things that they want to make sure is happening with those bonding dollars. So we put in our application. Janine's team, and particularly Corey McCullough, does the lion's share of that work to make sure that we can get those funds. We usually get about $45 to $50 million. And I think our last loan amount was about at a 1.5% rate on a 20-year fixed. So it's great, cheap debt for us, and the bonding bill is a key component of that. Thank you, Kyle, for that little note.
Super. Other questions or comments? Anything else? I see Mr. Fredson.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question related to the PFA. I don't know if you would have an answer or not. I'm interested to know what percentage of that goes to the metro versus Greater Minnesota, or outside the metro would be a better way to put it.
I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to ask Lisa to back me up. I think we're at about, it pretty much follows the population. So we treat about 50% of the population of Minnesota. And I believe the total PFA amount is about 100 million, but I might defer to Kyle or to Lisa because they're on the line.
I do not know the percent off the top. I do know that we used to get a larger percentage, and there was some shifts several years ago. I don't know where we've ended up, but there was some controversial reactions to that at the time.
Yeah, that's right. My recollection is that the total PFA program is over 100 million. And so historically, we would receive loans that took 50% or reflected 50% of the total. And there was some outstate pushback on that. So what we've done is through working with the PFA, our project list reflects about a $50 million, $45 to $50 million needs.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Councilmember Vento.
Mr. Chair, this doesn't relate to bonding, but indirectly relates to the pandemic update. I'm wondering if there's anything more to report with regard to the wastewater treatment assessments that have gone on to identify outbreaks. I've heard a couple of stories recently, probably in the last day or so, regarding the use of such testing at college universities where they've actually been able to identify dorms where they need to do testing and then take steps based on the test results. Just wondering if there's anything more here in the metro area regarding that.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Vento, this is Kyle Colvin, manager of wastewater planning customer programs group. Yeah, working with the Minnesota University of Minnesota Medical Group and using GIS systems, we've been identifying locations within the regional collection system that are located in close proximity to U of M housing facilities, nursing homes, and schools to assist them in identifying locations in the system where they can collect samples to identify and trace levels of the COVID virus. We have not been privy to the information or the results of that efforts, but we have been working with U of M to locate locations within our system and point out potential locations in the local collection system to assist in their efforts in that.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Kyle, do you anticipate any kind of, I guess I'd have to identify long-term, but continuing use of that kind of testing in the next few years until things settle down? I'm wondering if this is a short-term or a long-term, or if there's any way of predicting that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Vento, I do not know what the long-term outlook for this is. I know the initial efforts to assist the U of M was actually to help them apply for federal grant monies to do this work. But I do not know what the long-term outlook for this effort is.
It's super important work, and I'm really thrilled that we are participating to the extent that we are. That's great to hear. Other questions or comments? Well, we can keep it short and sweet today, folks, at a half hour, so not too shabby. Thank you, everybody. And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. We'll see you.